Hey everybody, Jay here. You know what? Fall is in the air. We've got cooler nights coming in right now, and that only means one thing, and that means pre-turnover is on the way, and we have brought in a ringer to tell us about it. No, not that ringer. We brought in local guide Dan Gropengiser to tell us all about turnover and pre-turnover conditions.
Hey everybody, just want to go over a few quick things over the pre-turnover, post-turnover questions. There's a lot of things that come into play when it comes to turnover. Basically, the beginning of the year or the beginning of fall, because that is a great time of the season, I'm looking at the changes not only on the water, but on the trees. The hornets are starting to gather. You're starting to see a lot of things happening. Squirrels are starting to go crazy. Everybody's making that change and transition from summer to packing on the pounds. So essentially what I'm looking at once I do get on the water, I'm not really looking at the water temps, I'm looking more towards what's happening in the weeds. If the weeds are starting to lay down, they're starting to get brown, I'm going to be targeting those weed areas also. Just outside of them and then right dead center of the weed. Because those fish will actually move in, they'll start to slide in, and they're going to move with the bait. The bait right now, you're looking at a little bit larger perch, you're looking at larger panfish that are going to be really active into those areas. So I'll get out on the water generally early in the morning. This time of the year is really good. Water temps start dropping at night. You got 30 degrees, 37 degree temps, 40 degree temps, overnight conditions. So with that being said, your water temps start dropping, those fish start sliding into the shallows. I'm not just going to have my areas that I fish either. Obviously you've got your community spots that are going to be good, your milk runs that are going to be good, but I'm going to look at days prior to being on the water. So if I'm coming up for the weekend, I'm going to be looking at those wind conditions. So we've got a lot of cold fronts rolling in right now, and after those fronts roll through, we have a big push of wind that follows them. So I'm going to look at the weather forecast prior to coming up. I'm going to say to myself, which way is that wind coming from? And then I'm going to go from the wind blowing side, I'm going to hit that side. That's where I'm going to put a lot of time into fishing. Because those fish, they won't only just hit the key areas, but when the wind pushes into them and the oxygen starts generating there, the bait fish are going to hang there. And even a couple days after that, so if we get the large wind, it calms down, those fish are still going to be active there. So if you got a big south wind, head to the north end of the lake. If you got a big west wind, head to the east side of the lake. The baits that I'm going to be pulling, rubber. Rubber is key right now, and that's where I'm actually going to be making weed contact. So I'm going to be ripping those baits out and literally creating shooting lanes through those weed patches. Bucktails are going to be another great option. Electric bunnies, any double 10s, something that's going to create a lot of commotion, because it's going to be a reaction strike, because those fish will be in the weeds or buried right dead in them, and you want to be burning right over them. So even if you get contact with your bucktails, you get a little bit of weed action on there and them weeds stick on there, keep reeling it in and make huge figure eights, because those fish come out of nowhere even on the crystal clear bodies of water. So when it totally comes to turnover, a lot of individuals look at the water temps, and every lake is different. You could get on a lake when turnover is definitely happening, but your water temps are going to be different because you have your fronts coming through. You got to warm up, you got to cool down. You got to warm up, you got to cool down. Generally that 55 degree range is turnover. After that, that's when you're dealing with the post turnover. So you start getting below that 55, you hit the 50 degree range, that's when I'll start going with a combination of live bait and still casting. You'll still have a good bucktail bite, and once you have those suckers out, that's your extra target range right there. After turnover, your 50, like really low 50s and into your 40s, I'll still be casting rubber, and then I'll actually be sliding off those edges into that 15 to 20 feet of water. I'll still target up onto the weeds, but I won't be actually ripping through the weeds. I'll be on that weed edge. So a lot of things happen throughout the year, but this is one of the most exciting times of the year because the fish that have been out suspended with the bait pods come in with their bait. They're going to be in there, and it's great because you're going to see fish that nobody's seen since spring. So good luck, everybody out there on the water. Have a great rest of your season. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Captain Matt Raley, full-time fishing guide up here in Vilas County, Wisconsin. Talking about turnover. Turnover up here, we do get true turnovers on some lakes. A fair amount of the lakes, the water will kind of just dirty up, but it doesn't really have a thermocline in it, so water flips, it gets dirty, but at the same time it's not like a true turnover. We get some lakes, our deeper lakes, will have like a true turnover. So pretty much what that means for fishing is the great thing about up here is there's a variety of different lakes. Vilas County's got 250 musky waters in it. Oneida County's got 150, so got a lot of options to choose from. So there are times, I'll go to the lake, if it's a lot greener, dead leaves, stuff like that coming off the bottom. When I get to the landing, I can just move down the road, go to another lake. That's a real nice thing about this area. But if I am fishing something like that where it turns over, the thing about it is a lot of times fish will actually be up a lot shallower than what they once were. With that dirty water, even on stuff that's clear lakes, I've had some really good days, but a lot of times those fish are a lot more shallow than what you would think. You're finding fish that normally be on like a deeper weed edge, 10-12 feet of water. Those fish could be sitting in like 3 to 5 feet of water. It's pretty much they'll come up there during turnover. So the things that I'll kind of to do during those situations, a lot of times slow presentation jerk baits, your suics, your rubber baits, your medusas, bulldogs, swim baits work pretty good as well. That's generally kind of a good pattern during that time frame, is kind of like slow jerk baits up real shallow, a lot of times up on the inside weed edge and stuff like that. So windows seem to be pretty tight, bite windows when it is during turnover, but even when it is going, you can put a couple fish in the boat during the window, but it usually is kind of a short window during turnover for the bites, so just kind of pay attention to that. So like I said, biggest thing up here is just being mobile, so you don't have to fish through it if you don't have to, but if you do, biggest thing is just to slide up a little bit shallower till that water kind of starts clearing up and those fish will kind of move back out to the edge. So that's pretty much how I kind of break down turnover fishing. Usually you're talking about a mid 50s is usually when water temperatures start to turn over. And there, I guess pretty much pre-turnover, a lot of lakes, those fish are going to be up in the weeds, maybe not like quite as much like on your humps and your points. They're going to be on the flats and inside turns typically. Kind of like it just all depends on the lakes. Some lakes have a lot of different structure diversity up here. Some of them, like the smaller lakes, there's not a ton of structure. It's kind of like, are they going to be more like more of like the flats, kind of going back to your springtime fishing where the fish are kind of up in the flats and the new weeds. Like that's kind of the same thing. Those fish kind of migrate up into the flats, bury themselves up in the weeds. Pre-turnover stuff, you can get fish to still chase, and if it's low 60s, that time that water temperature bucktails, top water, stuff like that is also effective. Still mixing a fair amount of jerkbait, swim bait, stuff like that too, especially if you get those high pressure system days. But if you kind of get low pressure, you know, those fish up shallow like to chase, you know, your bucktails and top water still, but going into turnover.